Well, we're pleased to welcome my friend and dear brother back to the set. Maurizio, if you recall, was with us right at the beginning of this month, and he opened us up to some concepts which are indeed wonderful. We've pondered on them, and I also attempted to build on that in the broadcast of last week. I'm pleased again that out of his very busy schedule, Mauricio has found time to be with us again. And it's a pleasure to share with him, to share his thoughts and to share his heart and passion. So I welcome you back, Mauricio, back to the 10th broadcast. And we're very happy that you are with us again. Specifically, Maurizio today will be speaking on a theme that is captured belonging to the king. Now, it's going to take us through a few alleys, valleys, and heights, but yes, it's all to deepen our understanding and definitely be of great help to us. So, Maurizio, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very well. Thank you. And I'm very happy to share again with you some thoughts and insights about our favorite topic, which is the kingdom of God. And
Yes.
actually, my passion for the kingdom is really is really has really influenced my life too, and the life of many others. So I thank God for having allowed me to meet wonderful people like you and many other friends, because we could go into a journey together and see and experience together what is this life in the kingdom of God and what is this message of the kingdom. So actually, since the first times that I was hearing about this kingdom, I could not really focus in my mind what the theme, the topic was really about, because many I hear many people talking about the kingdom of God, but it's a bit theoretical as a concept, or as a also as a topic in itself. And when I found out instead that it is very real and specifically applied to the life of the believers, that it became very intriguing for me. And my passion started then, because I could understand that Jesus spent most of his time during his public ministry speaking of this kingdom. And I could understand that when they, after his resurrection, he spent 40 days with his disciples speaking about the kingdom of God. And, sometimes we meet with friends in our communities and congregations, and we talk 1-2 hours of the kingdom. We pray to the king, and then, that's normal average time, but it's they've been speaking about it for 40 days. So sometimes I think, what could they have spoken about, which is and then I came to know many concepts and many understandings about it, and really filled my joy, because this kingdom is really what Jesus came to bring back to earth, to restore the human race, and to restore the territory, which is part of this beautiful kingdom. So I don't want to go through, of course, all what we call the components of the kingdom. We have been, Kunle and I, we have been studying together this theme, and to go through all the components of a kingdom is a beautiful journey. But especially I want to speak about one of these components, which is called the territory, because it has a lot to do with belonging to the king. In fact, more than anything else, for me, it explains what are we called to do now, and what will be the future. I mean, it's a wonderful perspective on the redemption process. Now, I want to start with this defining a territory, also using some words that our mentor and friend Dr. Miles Monroe used to give in his books. And he was saying that the territory is a component of a kingdom. The essence of a kingdom is property. Land or property is the validation of a king and gives the king the right to claim kingship. So this is a sort of a definition. Actually, you cannot imagine a king without a territory, because he will rule over nothing. And kingship requires subjects and land on which to enforce the will of the king. So having understood this, I could understand that as God has a kingdom in heaven, he wanted to give possession of the land to the human race that he created in order for men to rule over this planet. So the planet Earth really is a territory in this earthly dimension, as we call it, in which the kingship of God can expand through his agents or ambassadors, which are men. Now, of course, we see that at the beginning, God created first the territory and then created the people who would dwell in the territory. And as his regents, they could live, ruling the domain in the name and on behalf of the king. So that was like preparing a domain for his sons in order to rule it according to their father's will and intention. And when God, we know very well that when God placed men on this territory, gave him some instructions, and then these men with his wife, they gave up the power that they had been given, and mostly the authority, and the usurper, which is the devil, took over the detention of this land and started ruling in his own way on what had to be a territory of God's kingdom. So actually, this is in brief the story that led us until when Jesus came back. And in the meantime, God started already a process of redemption, not just, as I said, of the human race, but of the land itself. I would, being a lawyer, I have a legal mind in approaching this this topic, and the word territory is surely a legal concept, because if we go out of legal concept, talking of a type of government, which is a kingdom, we cannot really understand it. And so this is what I'm offering to all the ones that are watching. They will listen, this legal perspective on what normally is dealt with in a religious way. A territory is a part of a country, or a geographic area separated from the rest and subject to a particular jurisdiction. Now, I would say that already two words are very important here. One is separated from the rest, because if you think of a territory, you think of some other territories of which this territory is not part of. So the earth was a territory that was created, separated from heaven. This is the first understanding that I have about this legal approach, and is subject to a particular jurisdiction. This is very important. You cannot have a land, a territory, without jurisdiction on it. So territorial jurisdiction, I will explain what jurisdiction means, because for some people could not be very easy to understand. But a territorial jurisdiction means a territory over which a government has jurisdiction. So, over a particular piece of land or over the planet, which is separated from heaven anyway, there must be someone ruling it, someone enforcing the will of the legislator, which in a kingdom is the king himself. And the territorial property, in essence, is land and the water, so the whole thing over which the state or the legislative and governmental body in charge has jurisdiction and control. So the words territory and property have a legal meaning, and they make sense only if related to the concept of jurisdiction. You cannot have these concepts together without someone ruling over them. So there must be a jurisdiction, because this makes the difference of who's ruling the separated piece of land of which we are talking about. We know that God has made many statements. I mean, he's the owner, he's the Adon, how they would say in Jewish, the owner by creation right of the whole planet, and he has made statements about it all over the place. I mean, the Bible is filled with statements that about God reminding men that this land belongs to him. And there is a special, in a psalm, he says God has created the heavens and the earth has given it to humans. So in Leviticus 25:23, for instance, and I connect this concept to what I was saying the last time I was here on air with you about the Jubilee. At the end of chapter 25 of Leviticus, God says, remember to his people that the land is mine, and you reside in my land as foreigners and strangers. Throughout the land that you hold as a possession, you must provide for the redemption of the land. So this is a very deep concept. I mean, God is telling his people, not the human beings in general, but the nation that he has formed and chosen. Now the land is mine, and I have given it to you in your possession. Possession is not ownership. Possession is detention. So it's something different, because if I have possession of the land, I can use of the land, I can enjoy the land, but I cannot act as an owner on it unless I have a power of attorney from the owner to do something on the land. So God says, remember that you only have possession, and if you have any authority on the land that I promised you, it's because it is mine, and I chose you as my agent on that land to rule it according to my laws. To possess means to occupy in person, to have in one's actual and physical control, to have exclusive detention and control. Possession is not property. Possession is a condition of fact under which one can exercise his power at his pleasure to an exclusion of all others. This condition of facts is called detention. Therefore, possession means the detention and control of a thing for one's use and enjoyment. So if I have possession of a land, it's because the owner has given it to me. It cannot be otherwise. It could be somehow that someone occupies a land which is not his and has not been given that right by the owner, and that's undue possession, and it's not legal. So a possessor can act as the owner without being the owner if the owner has given the right to the possessor. So actually now, if we have clarified this, we have a territory, which is the planet Earth. Then we have a possession of this land given to some people that are living in a special separated piece of this land, of this planet. And that possession was equivalent to the power of ownership, because the owner had given power of attorney to rule the land as if he was there with them using it. I hope that in between the difficulty of the legal language and my English, it can be clearly understood. I hope so. So
Sure. I love the fact that you did say something about you for the first time, I suppose, or maybe the way you highlighted possession makes it even clearer. I think it's probably the first time I've been able to think about it in that sense. The fact that you possess something does not mean that you own it.
No. For me,
And
for lawyers, it's very clear. I mean, a possessor is not an owner. And if you possess anything without the owner's permission, you could be in trouble.
indeed, indeed, and that makes sense because yes, I can possess something. For example, if I work for a company, they can give me a tool to work with, maybe a laptop. So I can possess that laptop, but it does not mean that I'm the owner of that laptop. It's still the property of the company. So the owner is the company, but then they've given me, unless they say we now transfer ownership of this to you, in which case I now have the power of attorney to do as I please over that laptop, then I cannot do that. Otherwise, I would be committing a crime.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
So we can understand now why. I mean, I repeat myself. For me, it's clear. But when God said, "Let us make men in our image and in our likeness, and let them give dominion, so they can rule over the whole earth," that doesn't mean that God gave the ownership of the land to mankind, to Adam. He gave him possession and he said, rule it for me. And you can eat everything. You see, it's a use. You can eat, name the animals, enjoy what I have done for you. You can eat of the fruit of trees, the tree of life, and and everything else, except for that, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But so possession is about using with the permission of the owner. So, having said this, now we have clear the understanding that the land is subject to jurisdiction. What is jurisdiction then? I hope nobody gets scared of this word. It's not so difficult. I will try to explain it. I wrote something down to make sure it was clear. So jurisdiction is the activity and the organization of a state or a governmental body aimed at implementing the legal rules in the specific case, in the specific area, geographic area. It is an area of authority. So jurisdiction is an area of authority, a geographic area in which a legislative body has the power to make laws, a government has the power to enforce such rules, and the judicial system to judge according to the same rules. In a kingdom, all the three powers, legislative, executive, and judicial, are embodied in the person of the king, who can delegate jurisdictional functions. So it is a power introduced for the public good on account of the necessity to dispense justice. In the end, jurisdiction means to speak justice. to speak the rights that have influence over that land, on which the one who speaks rights or speak justice over that land has the power to do so, and the authority that everybody else in that land will respect it. Is the practical authority granted to a legal body to administer justice within a defined territory, matter, and field of responsibility. In a strict sense, jurisdiction means to rule on legal matters within a particular geographic area. So we understand that jurisdiction is a concept very much related to sovereignty. When you enter a specific territorial area, you are subject to the jurisdiction, to the laws, to the enforcement of those laws, and to the judges which are, applying the laws of the cases that come into being, which are on that specific area. For instance, you cannot come to Italy without being subject to jurisdiction of the Italian state, because you enter the specific geographic area of Italy, and the laws of Italy are applicable to you. The government of Italy can make you implement those rules, and the judges, if you do something, you appear before a judge in court, they can judge over you according to the same rules, because they have this specific geographic area of applicability. So jurisdiction is something that pertains to the owner, not to the possessor, unless the possessor is given power of attorney. When God spoke to the Jewish people, to the Israelites, first of all to Abraham, he said, I will give you a land, and there you will enforce my laws. So these people, this nation, had the delegated jurisdiction from the owner to apply on that land the moral and the legal laws of the creator himself, the owner. So they could implement the laws that the creator made, and they could, applying the moral laws, judge the cases about how you can live over the land. So, when I see the Bible, I see how religion can apply to it. I don't understand how, because it's all a legal matter. It's how to rule on behalf of the owner the land with a delegated jurisdiction and a power of influence the land itself, not just the land, because, okay, I think I want to clarify this. They had been given, I think of Abraham, the delegated jurisdiction over the promised land. I will give you this land. And then Joshua entered the land and had the task and to occupy it and to rule it. But you see, the land that God said, this is for you, for that land, he has given to his nation the delegated jurisdiction over the land. Not making laws, but implementing laws and judging cases of life. But as far as other nations and other pieces of land which were not included in that specific geographic area, they didn't have power they didn't have jurisdiction. They could only influence. And how? This is what was promised to Abraham himself, say, being a light for the nations. And being, the descendants of Abraham would have been the light for the nations. That means that influencing the other nations would have started a process of redemption of other pieces of land in order for the king to take back possession again when he comes again. I think I ran a little bit too much, maybe, but
What you're saying is perfectly clear to me. I mean, if I try to re-echo your words, so
mm,
I'll say it this way. You remember that the scripture will always say the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The world also is His and all the people in it. So when it comes to ownership and therefore the supreme power of attorney, we know exactly where that lies. We know who owns that, and that's God.
mhm,
Now you can also see. Now fast forward to the time when Jesus had died and has risen again. Interestingly, we're talking about Easter, isn't it? So, but in
mm,
concept, we're talking about that time when he had died and risen again. And he made a statement. He said, all power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. In other words, I have been given the power of attorney. But what kind of power of attorney? What is the extent? It says all of it, which is really saying I've got unlimited power of attorney over all power in heaven and on earth. So both the spheres. So it now says, you go in my name. Pretty much the same thing that you've been talking about, which is that he now, having received that power of attorney, is now transferring or is now enabling his own representative to go not in their name but in his name, as if we were. I think that there is a legal word for it, which is the when you transfer um, the what's that legal concept when you transfer
mm.
the power of attorney to someone else? I covered it, but maybe I remember it. But when you it says saying, "Look, I've got all the power in heaven and earth. Now you go as
It's
though you are the one representing me. As if I'm the one standing there, and go into all the worlds and do what? Influence them. When you say then make disciples, it's really saying you go and influence hearts and mind so that they
yeah,
can do what I've taught. I'm just trying to probably
yeah, because
break down.
it's not. I'm trying. I was reflecting over these things, and I hope at least I give a seat for
Yeah,
reflection and
yeah,
in my legal frame. But the difference I want to make, all that you said sums up very well what I was saying before. But the difference um, um, is that when God said to Abraham, to Joshua, take possession of the land, and there the laws will be the ones that I have been given to you. So he's delegating jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is that sort of sovereignty that in a specific geographic area you can exercise. So it's an area of authority. When Jesus says to the disciples, you go into the world and make disciples and influence everybody that you meet, is not giving them delegated jurisdiction. Is giving them power of influence, which is different. This is why, and I know that this is very different from what some of even our friends are saying about the kingdom. But it's good to have sort of different perspectives sometimes. We cannot. This is why we cannot have jurisdiction yet over the systems of this world, because we are there only to influence people, not to rule over the systems of the world, because we don't have jurisdiction there yet. He will take back the whole land when he come back again. Now we can only prepare the way for him, and I will explain later how, basically establishing wherever we are our feet are walking, establishing the covenant. You know, the same Abrahamic covenant, which was, through you, Abraham, I will possess again the land that by Adam was given away. So it's something, because now I hear many times that we go into the world and we influence, we rule, not just influence, we rule over over the systems, the political system, the media system, the whatever. And this does not fit with all the understandings that lay at the bottom of the basic concepts of the kingdom and the territory and delegation of jurisdiction and commissioning with power of influence, which is different. For instance, it's a legal definition of influence, which is very different from the definition I gave you before of jurisdiction. Influence is the power exerted over others. It means to affect, modify, or act upon by physical, mental, or moral power, especially in some gentle, subtle, and gradual way. So it's a different thing. You don't make laws. You don't have the power to enforce those laws. You don't judge cases of life between the citizens, because that pertains to jurisdiction. Influence has to do with people, people's hearts, families, and culture, which is completely different. So when I hear someone saying we go out in the world and we will rule over the systems, we take possession of them and we rule over them, it for me does not fit in the legal frame that I see in the concepts that God is giving. So for instance, I want to say something about Matthew 16:19 and Matthew 18:18, where Jesus said, I have whatever you will bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you lose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Now, this has been dealt with by so many people, going to the proper Jewish frame, cultural frame, and what was Jesus meaning with these words. He was saying that just a minute, because it was saying that they had the power to make legal judgments indicating and establishing which is the way to walk according to God's law. So it's not making laws as if I become omnipotent, because if I go out and I allow something or I forbid something, heaven has to back me up, which is not really, what stands in line with the fear of God. So I will try to explain it according to some words that I found in some Messianic Jews and their comments to the scriptures. Some say that in this sense, Jesus was when appointing his disciples to be his successors, used a familiar formula by which he invested them with the same authority as that which he found belonging to the scribes and Pharisees, who bind heavy burdens on and lay them on men's shoulders, but will not move them with one of their fingers. That is, to loose them as they have the power to do. Quoting Matthew 23:3-4. In the same sense, in the second epistle to Clement, which is for instance in the Coptic Orthodox Church, it's canonic. Peter is represented as having appointed Clement as his successor, saying, "I'll communicate to him the power of binding and loosing, so that with respect to everything which he shall ordain in the earth shall be decreed in the heavens, for he shall bind what ought to be bound and loose what ought to be loosed, as knowing the rule of the church." Now, Yeshua, speaking to those who have the authority to regulate messianic kingdom life, commissions them to establish new covenant instructions and walk of life, which were called halakha. That is, to make decisions where there is a question about how messianic life ought to be lived. In verse 19 of Matthew 18, Yeshua is teaching that when an issue is brought formally to a panel of 2 or 3 messianic community leaders, and they render one of these decisions, a halakhic decision, here on earth, they can be assured that the authority of God in heaven stands behind them. And then, as you see, the unity of the subject matter in verses 15-17 of Matthew chapter 18 is also seen in the fact that 2 or 3, this repeated number 2 or 3, is found in both verse 16 and 19-20. And then in verse 25 continues the topic that he began in verse 15, how messianic life is to be lived, without what otherwise is an irrelevant digression to another subject. So he was saying to repeat, like, moreover, I tell you that if 2 messianic community leaders agree on the answer to any halakhic question or matter of public order that people ask you about, then that decision you make will be for them, so the people who ask the question, as if it had come directly from my Father in heaven. And he strengthens these words, saying, I will be in the midst of you. So he didn't give us the delegated jurisdiction to go out in the world and be omnipotent in the sense that we can make rules for everybody else and govern over systems of the world. We have that power of judging, which is really typical of jurisdiction, over the church life, over the messianic life, over the new covenant life, how you live according to God's will. And that regards the church, our families, our personal life, our character. You know, these are the things over which he backs us up if we implement his will in the land that we have been given. So I wanna come to a conclusion, and this is what I want to say. The plan of God is not only to redeem, to free the human race from sin, from death, from Satan, but also to restart his plan that we may be the human race made in the image of God, glorified and living on planet Earth as the Garden of Eden, and having immediate access to heaven, and heaven and earth being in partnership together. So the plan is not just redeeming or freeing or taking back to the original position the human race, but also to redeem the land. Because without the territory and without the geographic area on which to enforce jurisdiction, delegated jurisdiction, would not be standing. To restore the kingdom, God had to redeem not only the citizens, but also the land. Now, when he started in Genesis, he started from the land. He made the heavens, and made the earth, and then he made everything else, and last he made man. Now, through the process of redeeming everything back, retaking everything back to himself, it's his jubilee, we have to remember that, he's bringing home everything again, and he started the other way around. He started from the citizens, so that they will be able this time to rule and to make sure that they will be the ones who have no sin with them to carry in his kingdom. And then he will restore the land to the original beauty and giving it back to his sons, the citizens of his kingdom, to exercise then delegated jurisdiction, because the king himself will come in person to reign and rule over this planet together with his people. Now, as even Dr. Miles Monroe said in one of his books, Applying the Principles of the Kingdom, I read it again with great pleasure. Now we are sort of being trained to be able to exercise the delegated authority, which is jurisdiction over the planet. And by the power of influence that we had, we are sent to the other nations, different from the Jewish one, in order to bring the light. And Jesus is a descendant of Abraham, who is the light for the nations. And so what? So when there are other believers in other different parts of the planet, which is not the land of Canaan, even there, being united in the faith to the Abrahamic family, the same promise that was made to him is made to the ones which are stepping over Italy or stepping over UK, like you're doing. Because there we are establishing, affirming that God made a promise. I will give you the land. To whom? To you and your descendants. So if we read Galatians 3:29, it's clear. It says, if you belong to Messiah, then your Abraham's seed has according to the promise. Which promise? I will give you this land. So whenever we are sent, wherever we are sent, we have a power of influence. We don't own the land. We don't even possess it. So we can influence people. And wherever we are spiritually, we are reestablishing that in that land, a seed of Abraham stood. And the covenant is like a being from heaven. The covenant is reestablished. So that, a seed of the kingdom is being put there, and is like a mark, like a post, like a sign, a post sign, like a tzion, if I can use a Jewish word, that when the king is coming back, he will know that here in Siena, where I am in Italy, there has been one of his ambassadors bringing the light to this nation. And the covenant was reestablished, and this land would be repossessed by the king and given again to the ones who believed in him and lived here. So this is the whole plan. It's not just about giving the land of Canaan to the Jewish people. It's about giving the whole planet Earth to the citizens of his great kingdom. So now our job is to go and influence, the words of Jesus, like the mustard seed, comparing the kingdom to the mustard seed or to the yeast, is about influence. It's not about jurisdiction. So this is for me very clear how we are in this process of marking the planet wherever we are, influencing in culture and in with morals, and by the way of showing a character, that we are marking the places where we are standing, so that we are sort of proclaiming spiritually that this place will be ruled under the king himself when he comes back, and we will be the ones to which will be delegated authority and jurisdiction over this proper land. So that's very motivating for me, because it's not just about influencing now, it's about having a sort of a perspective in the future of what we are doing now, what will be the result, and where we will be with him ruling forever over the planet. This is our destiny, that final destination. So it's, as we know very well, we are not destined to go to heaven and stay there in eternity, but we are, and I'm sorry for the religious people here, but we are destined to live on the earth. It will be renewed. Some say it will be created anew. We don't really know that, but we are destined to be here. And now we are sort of making room for the Holy Spirit to influence the life of people, and to plant a post sign, a sign here. A citizen, an ambassador of the king has put his foot, like going on the moon and planting a flag. It's the same thing. We are marking a territory. Because we are talking about territory now. If we are talking about culture and influencing culture, it could be different. But this is about territory, and in essence, when Jesus said in Matthew 5, he says the meek will inherit the earth. This is what he's talking about. And when he was talking about to them about the kingdom, he was not just talking about some parts of it, but the whole of it. And the thing we are discussing tonight, for sure, he talked to them about this. In fact, in Acts 1:6, they asked him, is this the time that we will restore the kingdom to Israel? And Jesus said something, you have it wrong in purpose and time. The purpose, because the purpose of the Abrahamic covenant was not just to give Canaan to the Israelites. But the purpose of the Abrahamic covenant is to give the planet Earth to the citizens of the kingdom of God. So it's much bigger. So he said, you have it wrong. It's not just about that. It will be about that, but not only, because now even the time is wrong, because you will be dispersed. You will be scattered. It's not a time, and you will go and bring the light to the nations, which is give the testimony, be a testimony of Jesus. So, and then you receive power to do this. You see, he didn't say you receive authority, you receive power of influence, because you have to go there and influence people. Not yet to have jurisdiction over the land, but to influence people. So they needed power. I already finished my time.
Yeah, well, you really spoke a lot there about the focus on the influence that we have been, if you like, which is our current work right now. The fact that we are not making laws, the laws have already been made. Okay, that's not a job to make laws for earth. Earth already has its law, and that law did not even come from earth, it came from heaven. So our effectiveness is in knowing the law that were already made so that wherever we appear on earth, we are simply demonstrating, echoing, representing that law practically in a way that has effect on the heart and minds of people. And that is really the power to influence
Mm.
in the earth. And so I hear you clearly, and you've really taken us to the you've navigated us through the concept, the legal concept of this. And sometimes you see the reason why most of these ideas are lost or misconstrued is because the foundational concept behind them, the root behind them, have either been either not known or have been sidelined. And as a result, if you think about it, if you have a plant that no longer has root, it will probably die and the leaves will be blown all over the place. It will
Mhm.
take a different form. And I'm convinced that we have to represent all of this concept and thereafter talk about how we apply them so that it's not just theoretic, but it's something that we can
Right.
apply right now and right here. Yeah,
Mhm.
just almost rounding up that thought. As you were
Yeah.
speaking, I almost picture a lion that goes around his territory and puts a scent. You know, have you seen lion that just kind of scent all the trees, the shrubs around the territory that it's looking after? It scent everything so that it can say, look, as you walk in this territory, there is a lion here who is looking after this area, this territory. He does not own it, but is possessing it and is exercising
Yeah.
power of influence over that territory. So
Uh,
if you have another lion coming
You
in,
have yeah.
there's a lion here.
Yeah.
and,
There's
and
a lion here. You have entered the concepts, right? I hear that the you were applying those legal concepts already. So it's good. It's good. But you see, there is if I have 30 seconds only
yes,
to
please.
explain, I have heard many times, I'm not against going into politics as Christians, we should do what we are called to do. And for sure, we are called in that field too. But I'm saying, I heard many people saying, if we make laws according to the laws of God, then we will make the culture, we will change the culture. Now, as a lawyer, I want to say this is not really how it functions, because normally uh, laws are made uh, when the society has already developed a culture about something. So it's culture that makes laws, not the legislative body, actually. So this is you see when you have a parliament who's passing a law, it means that in practice in society is already 10 years they're doing that thing. So I would focus more on the power of influence that we have over culture and the hearts of the individuals, which can change the custom and the way of living, and therefore then laws must follow, because we are not living in a kingdom. You can't start from the law. In a kingdom, the king makes law and everybody has to obey, otherwise you cast out. But in our countries, you can't start from the laws, you have to start from the culture. And this is
I get it. I get
uh,
it because I really understand where you're coming from because you know um, And what you're saying is very much the way our democracies work. That's why people try to, have practices, and then you then have a lot of people who probably do that or have strong voices about it, and then they lobby legislature to turn that into law. Yeah,
Yeah,
and but then if we were to be living in a pure kingdom, oh, all you need is a king, just one person saying this is it, and everybody goes with that. And so, which means, and I think you've touched on a strategic point there. That is, if we have to, indeed influence what laws are made, then we should be influencing heart and minds, like you're saying, so that it uh, it more or less creates popular culture or some kind of uh, uh, you begin to have more people think that way, and as a result, then the law to establish it on land or on I mean, that will have jurisdiction over that territory can follow.
yeah,
I get it. Yeah, I
yeah.
get it.
So this is, I think, the right way to look at it.
Well,
So,
and that makes sense because that's how our government, our countries function right now, and we can't pretend that that is not the case. That is how it functions. And if you don't understand that, you would whatever you do will be counterproductive.
yeah,
So it's to definitely understand that, and then indeed then you can have a proper way of going about things. It just reminds me of in a place in I think Ecclesiastes that says that the labor of the fool wears all of them out because they don't know how to go to the city. How to go to the city is important because it that really connotes that you understand how things function, and therefore you can tailor your approach to make sure that you get the result that you're after.
yeah,
Otherwise, whatever you do, the axe, if the axe is blunt, then you can't cut the tree.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. Yes,
I, I,
yes,
I I love this concept because they very much it makes the kingdom of God or the knowledge of the kingdom of God practical. It's not something that's just really out there, wavy,
yeah,
untouchable like a cloud. No, it's very much tangible. It's touchable. You can live it. You can think it. You can practicalize it. So, wow,
yeah,
my friend. Thank you so much for your thoughts again. And I know that for a lot of our viewers, Mauricio has taken us, through a brief of his legal legal ideas. Uh, I'm sure you'll probably start playing with words like jurisdiction and power of attorney from now on, and then you start sounding like a lawyer. Yeah, but but thank you so much, Mauricio. It's always
okay,
good to have that perspective, and it just means that whatever you do, you can understand the kingdom of God through what you do every day, and that's what I'm hoping that we all can see, so that it
what?
becomes real. You think it's not different from what you do. If only you can understand it through the concept of your daily practices, and that's
Mhm.
what we're trying to encourage.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
if you have a closing word, just please share it, and then we can close for tonight.
yeah. It's been a very great pleasure to be again here with you, and I really hope that people that are watching or will watch can enjoy all this, and at least to have a sort of a double thought about the legal implications of this book, which we call Bible, the Bible. It means the book, actually, and it's filled with legal implications. It's about a government and a country and the king and his people. So that's all that he's talking about. So have a good journey in
Indeed,
trying to see this perspective. Thank
indeed.
you
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Maurizio.
much.
I appreciate it very
Same
much.
here. Same here. You're very dear to me and to us on this in this community, and we look forward to welcoming you back very very soon. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.